Hi guys, and welcome to our third property review. I want to say thank you so much for the feedback we've had so far. So we're over in Broome Valley. This is in Rotherham right now, and we are viewing a 3-bed semi-detached property, and we're going to be looking at whether we're going to rent it, buy it, live in it, or avoid it. So let's jump straight in and get inside. So as soon as you walk in, the first thing you notice is this really big entrance room. So everything's just a little bit bigger than normal. So you've got the stairs up there, the kitchen there, and the front room here, and everything's quite wide. So we've fully refurbished this property. This is one of our flip properties, okay? And one of the first things that we decided on is the color scheme. So you'll notice throughout there's a lot of grays, pastel colors, and some yellows thrown in to give a bit of pop and color. But one of the biggest tips I can have or give to refurbishing a property is keep it simple. Don't go on your taste. If you like really loud colors, it doesn't mean everyone else does. So keep it neutral so most people coming in can appreciate the space and it's not narrowing it down to certain individuals. So let's jump into the front room and show you the space we've got in there. So we're in the front room. It's a really nice open space, and I guess this is the second tip of the video, is whether to dress the property or not. So this really depends on availability of furniture. I think we've got 3 sets of furniture that circulates around. But what I really like about it is it allows somebody to visualize the space that they're in. So when you're in an empty property, first of all, when it's empty, you start noticing small imperfections, which you don't notice when it's furnished like this. But also it allows somebody to go, yeah, you know what, this is probably where I'd have my sofa, that's the most likely place to have the TV, or it might be a different location. But even if somebody's saying, actually, I wouldn't have it there, I'd have it there or over there, it's still getting them to visualize what they would have whilst living here. So it really gets people making it their home before they've made it their house. The other thing I like about this room is like, all of the rooms in this property actually are quite square, they're quite large, and a lot of open space for light to come in. So I'm a big fan of this property, as you can probably tell, but the light in this room is absolutely perfect. So now we are in the kitchen / dining room. It's quite a cute little space, to be honest. And again, it's really nice to sort of chuck some things in that really match up. So when we're buying things like tables like that, it's quite rustic and things like that. But we make sure it's not a massive table. It's more like a quirky thing to put in, and people can, again, visualize themselves having tea here, dinner here, some lunch, and of course, drink after a hard day's work, right? But what I really like is it's quite stylized, quite idyllic for a young family. So it's not a massive kitchen, but it's got everything you need. And then if you come over here, this is definitely the most crazy part of the property. I've never really seen it before, and we weren't really sure how to utilize it. So let's jump in. So again, this is the part that I find really weird, because it's just a bit of random space. Like, I guess it could be used as utility, but again, so we've got this, and the guys, when they're refurbing, obviously all the way through, right? But if we go in here, it's just this, like, the boiler's in here, it's just this random little space. And again, it's kind of like, well, what can you actually do with it? And then again, if we jump across to here, we've got something similar, like this random little slot. And again here, a sort of outside utility. So it's sort of like this outshed, if you like, where what we were balancing up here is whether we should open it up. So there's space to the side, which you'll see when we go outside. But we could have extended out, but the cost of doing that just did not exceed the value of the property. And so we decided just to keep it like this, freshen it up, and then people can make it into whatever space that they want. Okay, it's actually hitting me. 6 out of 10. Okay, so this is a 3-bedroom property, and again, we've dressed it quite well. Let's start with the smallest room, the box room. Now again, when you're sort of putting together a box room, we've put in this slightly more feminine, let's say, colors in here. But again, by putting in a bed, it allows people to see the size. Now you can put, this is actually a double room, you can put in a double bed, but it makes it feel quite claustrophobic. But again, well presented, looks quite nice. And then again, if a family, which is the most likely buyer, when they bring their kids around, usually for a second or third viewing, usually the kids will be running around the room going, this is my room, that's my room, and it just isolates that and helps get the family bought into the purchase, often increasing the likeliness that they'll buy, they'll be quick and pay you a good price. So let's go into the main bedroom. So I know I've just said the main bedroom, but actually this and the other bedroom behind us are both really large sizes. So again, I said downstairs about the square nature of these. And I don't just mean square, I mean like the shape of it. A lot of properties that we go in have these awkward L shapes or a bit of the corner cut in where everything's pretty squared off. It makes it, one, more attractive. You know, people's eyes work on symmetry. It's same as humans, you know. Who makes the most attractive? Usually people that are symmetrical in some way. But also, from a refurbishment point of view, it's very easy to price it up, theoretically at least. And because it's square, there's very little that can go wrong compared to other odd-shaped rooms. So yeah, really nice size. And let's go into the last bedroom. You'll see what I mean about the fact that this might be considered the master bedroom, but there's a really great bedroom behind as well. So we're in the final bedroom now, and again you can see a really decent size as well. We've got some built-in cupboards, you've got a little knob in the corner there which actually isn't ideal, but again you can put a wardrobe in there, and if we had a bit more time with this property we would have got some built-in shelves in there, but we didn't bother because it was the prime time for the market to put on. But again, just by seeing little things like the bed, the bedside table, the lamp in the corner, really adds that sort of appeal and makes it more of a home rather than a house that somebody's buying into, which is really important, especially if you think about your end buyer, which in this case we are looking for that young family to see this, fall in love with it and think about how they can make it their home. So finally we have got the house bathroom. Now there's not a lot to say about this. It's a relatively small room, bath, shower, sink and toilet. What we could have done is nicked a bit of space, but actually I really like the room sizes in this, so I'm really glad that they chose not to. The advice I'd give around this is just try to make it as simple as possible. You know, make it modern, make it up to date, but don't go over the top. I think that because the kitchen and the bathroom are the best aspects that sell a house, some people go overboard, and just because it looks nice doesn't mean it has to be expensive. Okay, so let's jump outside. Well, actually, it's quite a nice sizable garden. Now, again, with this sort of area, and I think this is really important to see what is in the area. It's pretty much every garden, on this side at least, is slightly sloped up. So if it were the only garden that wasn't, we'd probably look at the cost of leveling it out. And but because everyone's like it, it really doesn't. So we've got a southeast facing garden, which is not bad to capture a decent amount of light. And yeah, you can tell from all this, it's a pretty decent size. So it's a nice little run around bar, also quite a simple layout, so easy to maintain. Another tip coming into this video, almost everyone forgets, is the maintenance of a garden if you are looking to let it out or sell it. Remember, you've got the conveyancing time, it's going to be a few months. So you can tell from here and out the front, if this were another month or so, we'd have to pay for somebody to come and cut down the grass, etc. But honestly, even factoring in de-weeding and things like that, a lot of people usually are about £1,000 to £1,500 off what they expect the gardening cost to be on your refurb. So remember to factor it in. It doesn't add a lot of value to the property, but it does add to the appeal of the property, which does mean you're going to sell a lot quicker. And if you're using any form of finance, that's going to be really important to you on a monthly basis. Okay guys, let's jump into the numbers, which is by far my favorite part of this review, and let's jump right in. So this property was 89,995. Let's call it 90 grand to make it easy, and we bought this property with what we would call emergency funding. Now the reason that's important to this particular property is just a reminder that when you're refurbishing the property, it will always take longer and will always cost more than you think. And something people don't take account of is their finance costs and their holding costs. So with this property, we made a lot of mistakes actually, which I'll cover in a moment, but one of them was overrunning and overspending. So we were expecting this refurbishment to be around the 20,000. It actually come closer to 25,000. And because we used emergency funding, which we use once we've run out of our allocated money, plus we've got some investment partners and run out of that money, and a property comes along that is just too good to pass up, we go all in with it, and this is one of them. So we ended up purchasing with 90, spent about 25 grand on it, had finance cost of about 7 grand, buying cost of 7 grand, and holding cost of 1,600. That might seem like a really small part, but remember, when you're holding the property and looking to sell it on, often you don't have it tenanted. So you are the one that's covering the council tax, the bills, water, all of that sort of thing in the meantime. The other thing that etched up that refurbishment is, again, if you remember I said outside about the gardening cost, we forgot to factor that in. Even when you've been doing it for years, you make mistakes, okay? And we end up spending a couple of grand cleaning up the front and back garden to get it to the state that it is today. We also overrun quite badly. We went into COVID over the Christmas period. All of it amalgamated to a huge delay. So we ended up taking over a year from when we agreed to purchase to when we complete, which is tomorrow on this property, okay? And so all in all, after everything's done, we make just shy of £14,000 on this property, which actually is about 6 grand less than we predicted we would make. So it's not gone anywhere near as well. It never does. You know, you win some and you lose some. But overall, we're pretty happy with this project. If for anything, just looking around and seeing what a great product that's been released to the market, a great job that the team have done, and hopefully a valuable video for you guys to take away some of my key learnings from this moving forward. Well, it seems really nice, but here are the 3 bad things about this property. So the number one bad thing about this property, and it should be the first thing you look at, is the numbers. Whilst we are making a decent profit on this, we should have made a lot more. And the reason we didn't, apart from the delays, is because the amount we spent on this refurbishment. We should have been a lot closer to 20, but we ended up a lot closer to 25,000. And the reason for that is halfway through, once we actually owned the property and started stripping back, we decided that we were going to up the spec of the refurbishment that we were doing, hopefully to increase the sale price. Which it did, but not by the amount that we thought. And actually, the big lesson there, the learning tip that I could take from this, is always get estate agents, local estate agents' opinion on what the expectations are on the street from the off, so that when I'm submitting my offer, I can factor in the refurbishment that's going to be required. So number 2 is the kitchen space available. I actually think the team have done a really good job in designing this, and I am deliberately trying to find flaws because I do like this property. But if there is a space in terms of size that lets it down, it's definitely the kitchen area. Bear in mind, this would be a family that lives here, and there's a lot of square footage behind that door, as we've seen. It just would have been great to have some of that incorporated here. We don't get to pick the layout sometimes, we don't get to pick the sizes, but if there's something that I could pick a hole in, it's the space that's available here that I would have loved if the profit allowed for it to go into that and make something of that space. And number 3, which is always the case on a refurbishment project, is the blemishes. Now, I think it's important to call out what we can actually improve ourselves within this. And this isn't the property's fault. So we've done a really great refurbishment, but as I'm walking around, there's a lot of little things like the paint that sort of dripped that could have been sanded down and reapplied, little bits of paint on the sockets as we're going around, in the bathroom a little bit of mastic on the glass, little things like that that you don't really notice them, but because it's refurbished, you end up seeing them a lot easier. And I think a lesson for me, maybe to add to my process, is to make sure that when somebody's going around for the finish, if you like, and putting in the furniture, is to make sure that we're looking out for those sort of things to get rid of them, because it's small things like that that can really tilt somebody's decision-making process when they're thinking about purchasing this property versus another. So it's not all bad. Here's 3 good things about the property. Okay, so the number 1 thing I love about this property is the amount of space available. Number 2. So number 2 good thing is it's a boring property, okay? That might sound negative, but I mean it as a really good thing. It is just as bread and butter as bread and butter gets. Okay, there are comparables for days with this property. It's just standard 3-bed end terrace property. There's loads that way, loads that way, loads that way, and so you know your numbers inside out, and it's just the obvious place. A 3-bedroom end terrace, great school nearby, great area, great amenities, where you know it's going to get snapped up on the open market. So number 3, and it's a bit of a feel-good one, is it's nicely dressed. As soon as you walk in, it's like, this is a nice home. And I've not met the family that's moving in tomorrow, it's completing tomorrow, but it does feel really nice, making a profit. And we've genuinely taken a really tired house and made it into somebody's home that I hope is going to be their home for the next 5 to 10 years. And there is a feel-good factor about doing this part of the job. Okay, so we're about to jump outside to get to the end of the review and see the outcome, but before we do, what really helps the development of this channel is, of course, the growth. So the way that you can help is, if you've got value from this, make sure to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and of course smash that like button, and let's jump outside and get to the end of this review. So there it is, the final of the property. Now the question is, do I rent it, flip it, live in it, or avoid it? Now look, let's jump to the chase. You already know, because I've refurbished and I'm flipping this one on. So I am going to be flipping this property, selling it on, making a healthy profit and giving it to somebody else to make their home. The only reason I'm not renting it out is I think we've hit a ceiling in this market, and I don't see much about the local area that's going to push it on and give it strong capital growth. So I'd rather cash in now and invest in an area that's going to go up over time. Six out of 10. Right, so upstairs.
Let's do that again.
Why? What was?
I walked into the wall and I was like, I can't move.
Was everything else okay?
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure how many takes of that I can do, Alex. Before I genuinely like.
3.
Okay, so let's get into the numbers, and this is always the exciting bit for me, as you can tell by my really, really happy face.
That was actually a really good start.
I just thought it was too good to pass the opportunity to wind you up, because you seem really into it. Okay.
Your best one so far.
So far, correct. Okay guys, so let's jump into the numbers, which is definitely my favourite part by far. I'm going to start again because Alex is upset that I stumbled a little bit. Well, it seems really nice, but here are the 3. Don't put that in.